Test, 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 test.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the regular business meeting of the District of Squamish for Tuesday, November 4th. Holland Squallen, Clistukmet, Squamish Oakmail. As always, we're gathered to do our work today on the traditional and unceded territory of the Squamish Nation. Please be advised that this council meeting is being live streamed, recorded, and will be available to the public to view on the District of Squamish website following the meeting. If you have concerns, please notify the corporate officer present at the meeting. Can I have someone move adoption of the agenda, please? Moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And I'd just like to point out to folks, we do have Councillor Greenlaw joining remotely today. And I just wanted to test that you can hear us okay, Councillor Greenlaw? It's a long pause. Councillor Greenlaw, we just want to confirm that you can hear us. I just want to confirm that she's in the meeting for
I
purposes
can't
of
hear
the...
you. I don't know
Oh,
if
there
you
we
can
go.
hear me, but I can't hear you. So
Councillor Greenlaw.
give me a minute.
Okay. Okay, we'll come back when it's time for comments. I'm happy to hear that you're there, and we'll just make sure that everything's working as we move through. So we don't have any delegations or invited presentations today. Unscheduled public attendance is next. So, sorry, next item is unscheduled public attendance. If anyone has a matter they wish to bring to council's attention that's emergent and urgent in nature, now would be your opportunity to do so. Seeing none, I'm moving along. We do not have any public hearings tonight. We have the consent agenda. Council, would anyone like to pull anything from the consent agenda? Councillor Stoner?
I'd like to pull item B1, please.
Item B1. Okay, we'll deal with that at the appropriate time. Councillor Anderson, yes?
Mayor Herford, I'd like to pull out B4, please. Provincial responses to resolutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, Council? I'll pull C1. I feel it pairs with with B1 as well. I think should be part of that conversation. So we'll deal with those at the appropriate time. Is there anybody else that would like to pull anything? If not, could someone move the consent agenda? Moved by Councillor Hamilton, second by Councillor Anderson. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. So next we have consideration of first, second, and third reading. So we have the District of Squamish Floodplain Management Bylaw, number 2751, 2021, and this is repeal bylaw number 3201, 2025. Ms. Morris, do you have a comment for us?
Thank you. Sarah Morris, Manager of Legislative Services. I don't have a presentation for this bylaw. It's an administrative bylaw. When the floodplain bylaw was adopted recently, we recognized that the previous floodplain bylaw had not been repealed by that bylaw. And so this bylaw is just repealing the old floodplain bylaw so that we don't have two in existence.
Okay, thank you. With that context, could someone move the recommendation, which is all three readings? Moved by Councillor Hamilton, second by Councillor Stoner. Any comments on this? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. So next we're on to 7A2, District of Squamish Development Cost Charge Front-Ender Agreement Authorization Bylaw. This pertains to some properties on Centennial Way, and we'll give staff opportunity to get set up. And I'm just going to check in with Councillor Greenlaw again to make sure that our audio is on and everything's functioning okay. So we're getting full So I want to make sure that you're fully able to participate in the meeting.
I
Councillor
can't
Bruno.
hear you. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you, but it's faint. So thank you. If you could just try to use the electronic hand function, I just want to make sure I don't miss you when you're looking to speak. So I will check in with you as best I can, but that would help me on this end. So I'll turn over to staff when you're ready.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Liam Jones. I'm a project engineer with the District of Squamish Development Engineering Team. And with me today is Dave Marrow, the Acting Director of Engineering. And we're here to present to you the Development Cost Charge Front-Tender Agreement Authorization Bylaw for 1701 and 1940 Centennial Way. So just a quick outline of what we're going to go through today. We'll touch on the purpose of the bylaw and the front tender agreement itself. We'll go through a little bit of background on the project and some context. Then we'll go through our rationale and our decisions and recommendations. Finally, we'll touch on some implications, financial implications of entering into the front tender agreement and proceeding with the bylaw. And then we'll give you our recommendation. So the purpose of the bylaw is to authorize District of Squamish to enter into a front tender agreement with the developer. This is a requirement of the Local Government Act. The front tender agreement itself has already been drafted, and I believe a draft of that has been provided to you in your reports. The draft was prepared with the developer feedback and also reviewed by our legal team. So the front tender agreement, if authorized, would allow timely construction of a DCC water main project, which might otherwise be significantly delayed. And entering into the agreement and proceeding with this upgrade would support new residential, employment, commercial, and childcare space at the development site, which is already under construction, and it would allow it to receive occupancy permitting once it gets to that stage. And again, this development's at 1701 and 1940 Centennial Way. So just to give you a little overview context of where this is located in Squamish, it's right at the north end of Loggers Lane. And the project you can see on the screen would be the portion of water main extending from that intersection of Centennial Way and Loggers Lane west to the highway. So the scope is relatively small in the context of these larger DCC projects. A little bit of context on the development itself, just to see what kind of development we're supporting through this work. There's 266 residential units proposed for the development, which would be a mix of affordable and market rental. There's 26,000 square feet of light residential that would come online, 28,000 square feet of office and childcare space, and 21,553 square feet of commercial space. So it's a big variety of development and use that we'd be supporting. And that is in line with the district's strategic goals for supporting affordable housing and employment close to residents. A little bit more on the project itself. It's pretty straightforward. It's a portion of water main that's currently sized at 200 millimeter diameter, and we'd be upgrading it to 450 millimeter diameter. It's about 250 meters long. And it's actually a portion of a larger DCC project, which would extend down Loggers. The design has been completed by a civil engineer already, and that design has been approved through a servicing agreement by the district. So it's ready to be constructed. It just needs the financial levers. So a little bit about our rationale and supporting this is the upgrades are required for safety reasons for fire flows for the development, which is an occupancy issue. So without it, they would not be able to receive occupancy. And this particular project would provide capacity beyond what is required for the development itself. It would support increased and improved supply for fire flows throughout the Loggers East neighborhood and beyond. If the District of Squamish Capital Team were to complete this project, which would be a typical process, the project itself could see significant delays, and it's already under construction, so that would put some challenges to occupancy and getting people into homes. And to expand on that last point, when we see it would be delayed, it's likely, for example, if the capital team was to complete the project, we would need to go through our procurement process from the start, and that would take several months. And also would require staff resources when we have other priority projects that are on the go as well. So touching on the financial implications of this, the total expected cost of this DCC portion of the work is $309,000. That cost estimate is coming from the engineer on the project, and it's a Class A cost estimate with a contingency of about 10%. The total DCCs payable, water DCCs payable by the developer for this development are below that number at $224,000. So the difference between the expected cost of the project and the DCCs payable for that water class are $85,000. That would be the impact to our water reserves, essentially. And the balance of those reserves were at $310,000 at the start of this year, and excluding any DCC payments from this particular project. So the remaining balance at the end of the year, excluding any other revenues that we earn in this 2025 year, would be $225,000. With that, that's the end of conclusion of our presentation. Our recommendation is that the District of Squamish Development Cost Charge Fund Tender Agreement Authorization Bylaw for 1701 and 1940 Centennial Way, bylaw number 3186, 2025, be given first, second, and third readings. And that will open it up to any discussion and questions.
Thank you. Councillor Stoner, would you like to get us started with questions?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair. I'm just wondering if staff can provide a summary of what current water DCC reserve is at. You already did that, but what the prioritized project list is for the DCC reserve. Like, was this in the top 10? Was it below the top 10 in terms of our internal prioritization?
Yeah, so I can, through the mayor, I can speak to that. Our infrastructure planning team has informed me that the top 2 projects for our DCC water class are the new reserve, which has already been constructed by university reservoir. And the other top priority project in the DCC water class would be new wells at Powerhouse Springs. And so that new well project is over $1 million. Every other project within our DCC water class would be of an equal or lesser priority to this one.
Okay, and so how do we weigh foregoing, like not only are we investing $85,000 from our existing DCCs, but we're foregoing $225,000 in reprioritization of cash in order to advance this work, rather than putting it towards, say, the well projects. So how are we balancing the pros and cons of that decision here?
Through the mayor.
I see Ms. Boxrood's hand, and I feel like will we start? Maybe that's a good place to start, and we'll see where the.
Sure. Through the mayor, maybe I'll just start by saying that the legislation, the Local Government Act, would require that we, at a minimum, if they were to complete this work on their behalf, pay them back that $224,000. So, and at the stage of the construction is that if we decided to reprioritize that, I think we would be pushing this project way down the road, which would mean potentially putting off the occupancy for years. So I'll let Heather maybe speak if she has more comment.
Thank you for the question. Through the chair, I'm looking, Ms. Turner is online and prepared to speak to this. I'll maybe give her just a second to turn her video on, and if not, then I will jump in and take her thunder there. There she is. Thanks.
Can everyone hear me?
We can. Please proceed.
Great. Good evening. So my name is Laura Turner, Director of Financial Planning and Reporting. As Liam has already explained, so we've got the opening balance of the DCCs was about 310,000. And so I can confirm that to date, we've got about 460,000 received. I'm just going to speak a bit to the DCC balances to start. And so unfortunately, we don't have continuity schedules for the DCCs. We don't have the reliable revenue forecast quite yet. We do have consultants working on that with us, so hoping to get that available soon. We're working with about 770,000 for 2025 as opening plus the amounts received. And then if we're looking at the draft financial plan, there's just a few projects that are already in it. So we've got the water master plan update, and that's about 150,000, not until 2029. And then, as Liam mentioned, the reservoir completion as well, and that's in 2025 for about 350,000. And then we start the Powerhouse Springs production well as well in 2025. And so those are the only projects that we do have in the financial plan, and they're all currently funded by DCCs. So none of them would require being canceled or pushed out at this point.
Ms. Boxer, do you have something to add?
Yes, thank you. And thanks for that, Ms. Turner and Liam. So just to add to this whole context is that other than the one project, we have everything that's within our current plan has been funded. So from a prioritization situation, we're actually doing quite good in the water DCC area, and we're not needing to forego another project for this project specifically in terms of timing. The one project that we're working on getting money towards is not until 2031, where it's going to have substantial construction, which is the long-term drinking water source expansion. You'll see that in the capital plan package that we published on October 14th, and we'll discuss it at the upcoming workshop, but that is the one unfunded project that we still need to raise DCC water funds for. So hopefully that allows you a little bit more context on the prioritization piece.
That is very confidence inspiring, but I just want to double check my numbers because I heard about $1 million for the wells, 300,000 for the reservoir, plus the water master plan in 2029, and we only have 770,000 in DCCs. So to me, that doesn't add up.
Correct. And what we're utilizing is a projection of our trending about $300,000 per year of past revenues as a projection in lieu of getting the new DCC rates and revenue projections, which the consultants are currently working on for us.
Okay. Thank you for that. I guess my other question on this for now is, what are the other options? So I've heard like delay. Is that really the only other option as presented? Like they just wouldn't be able to get occupancy because of fire flows?
There's an option. I would say the other options are through the mayor for our capital team to complete the works. Again, we'd be competing with other priorities on that, and it would likely cause delays to the project. Or we could renegotiate the amount payment to the developer. As I said before, they would, required by legislation, receive that 224,000. But my understanding is anything above that number could be negotiated. So that would be an alternative option.
Very good for now, Councillor Stoner. Thank you, Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, thanks. And maybe this isn't the right word, but in a normal circumstance, would it be that our capital team would do this work and fund it through the DCC when the developer was ready to do it, or our plans? So we would typically do this work. Is that, and this is sort of, that's what's unique here, is that the developers team would be doing the work?
Through the mayor, that's correct, and that's historically how it's been done in Squamish. I think with an understanding that moving forward, there's a lot more pressure and demand on development as a whole, and I think it's likely that we're going to see more of these front-end agreement applications be coming, developer-led or otherwise. And one thing I would say is that because the developer would be completing the work and they would complete the construction in this case, like they do take on a lot of the risk of the project in terms of scheduling and cost overruns. So there are benefits to the district in that sense.
And then how do we manage, and I'm sorry if this was sort of buried deep in the agreement, but sort of warranty or our comfort with the quality of the finished product and so on? Like how does that get managed?
Certainly through the mayor. The design was reviewed extensively by the District of Squamish engineering and public works departments, and we have approved it through a servicing agreement. And through that servicing agreement, we also hold bonding for the work, and then there will be a warranty period of 1 year after completion and handover that the developer would be on the hook for any maintenance required during that period, and that's how we would ensure that we have an acceptable product.
And so is there a phase when our engineers or our team sort of goes and inspect before it gets covered up and says, oh, yeah, we see issues here, or no, it's fine, or?
Yeah, certainly. As with any offsite construction that's handed over to the district, we have technicians and our engineers will go out to site and inspect occasionally during construction. And then we also receive inspection reports from the developers' engineers regularly, who are on site almost every day on the construction like this.
One final thing, is there, with a front end agreement, or in particular this one, are there any particular risks or sort of limitations on us that we should be aware of if we go down this path?
Yeah, I would say with the front end agreement, like it does allow us to push a lot of the construction risk onto the developer, but for the district, our risk would mostly be financial and prioritization wise. And so it would take resources from potentially what could go to other projects. And if we didn't have the amount to pay directly from our reserve, then we would have to finance it through a yearly or quarterly repayment scheme, which is a little bit more of a challenge.
Councillor Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks very much. So it's currently a 200 millimeter water line, and it's being proposed to be upgraded to a 400 millimeter line. What's the required size for the developer? Because they need to increase the size. What size? And then there's an additional extra that presumably other developments are getting benefit from. What size do they need to upgrade to? So for example, if we were to say, you go ahead and upgrade it to what you need to do, and then we'll go and upgrade it later. How high would they need, what size would they need to get to?
Through the mayor, I don't believe that was ever looked at, and the reasoning is that in our water master plan, it was specified to be a 450 millimeter upgrade that would be required in the future. So my understanding is we just told them that's what we would recommend they upgrade to because it matches what we're planning to do in the future.
Okay, so I'm trying to rationalize, I'm trying to understand how much of this upgrade is driven by that one project, right? To help me understand how much of the DCC they may be reasonably responsible for. Is there any way you can give me an idea of what fraction of the upgrade is required by this development?
If I may, Dave Merrill, Acting Director of Engineering. In this case, as Mr. Jones mentioned, we don't have that information and we would be speculating. And I don't want to speculate at this point in time. As Mr. Jones said, it is an identified upgrade. It needs to be that size for a variety of reasons, and that was the size that we selected for the works.
Perhaps I think I understand where you're trying to go, Councillor Hamilton. I was trying to pose a question that maybe will help everybody answer this. From previous discussions I've had around water mains and underground infrastructure, the price of delivering this project is, correct me if I'm wrong, is largely the need to open up the ground to put something in there. And what is in there, whether it's an extra 50 millimeters or 100 millimeters, whatever it is, has very little impact on the price of the project. Is that a concept you could? Am I right? And if I'm not, can you orient us just generally in that? Because I think whether it needs to be upgraded 100 millimeters or 300 millimeters, whatever, might not be as impactful to the price of the project. Can you speak broadly to that and how?
Yes, to you, Mayor. That's correct. The bulk of the cost associated with a project like this would be the excavation, the manpower to lay the materials. So it would be the difference in pipe size, essentially, or the cost differential between whatever pipe size would just be required for the development and what would be required, or the 450 millimeter diameter, which, as you suggest, in the grand scheme of things, is not all that significant. I wouldn't want to put a value to that, but
yeah, no, I think that's might be useful context. I don't know if that's enough for you, but just wanted to share that. I'll come back to you, Councillor Stoner. My question was around the timing of this. I feel like we're quite late it feels late in the process. And where, like, how did we get, just orient me as to like how we're here now. We're talking about occupancy of this development that's well underway. And this matter seems quite instrumental in achieving development on the site. And having been involved with rezone all the way through to development permit, just where do these things sit generally, and just how did we get here at this late hour? I don't feel like we have a ton of as much choice in this as I would expect us to.
yes, if I may, thanks for the question to you, Mayor. This has been a long project, as you alluded to, and there's been a lot of conversations with the developer and internally how this project was going to be delivered. There are different ways, as Mr. Jones alluded to earlier, how these projects can be delivered, whether they're done by district forces, whether they're done solely through development at the developer's cost, minus the DCC credits, of course, or whether we enter into a front-end agreement such as this. And those discussions and negotiations took quite a long time. And ultimately, as we worked with the DCC strategy work that's ongoing, that and with the capital planning team, that work helped inform how we best, or how staff felt we best deliver this project, and that's what we're presenting today. Also with that, the district only has one front-end agreement currently on the books, which is the oceanfront one, which was created quite a long time ago. So the process to create the front-end agreement and do the back and forth with the developer has taken some time as well.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm just going to go back to Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. I guess in follow up to that question, I'd be curious why this wasn't captured in the servicing agreement, as we typically capture offsite works that are needed for development in that, in kind of that model of development pays for the infrastructure that they need at the time. And if they can't carry that burden, then it just doesn't go ahead.
Certainly, through the mayor. So we did cover it under the servicing agreement in some forms. We have a design that was completed under the servicing agreement. We have some bonding for the work that was completed under the servicing agreement. Now, because the project was listed as a DCC project and it's in our DCC projects list, the district is obligated to go down a different route with this one and this portion of the project. And so that's the reasoning. And that's why we're obligated, if this gets constructed by the developer, to at a minimum pay them back that $224,000.
Okay, that's helpful to understand the differentiation. Then I guess my follow-up question would be, does this set precedents in some way? As you mentioned, we've only done this once before for what is a fairly, probably the largest development project we've ever had in community. Is this like a really unique scenario, or is this something that we would expect more developers to come forward with going forward?
I do believe that we'll see more of these projects and front-ender agreements being requested by developers moving forward. And that's likely based on development timelines and schedules and district capabilities and resources. We are developing a front-ender policy, and that was kind of coming right in tandem with this agreement itself. And so that policy will guide district staff moving forward and will be used at our level to provide some discretion on which projects we would bring to council in the future. I do think it's going to be fairly unusual to see this come in this manner, but I think we'll see more of them moving forward in the future.
Okay, it's helpful to hear that there's potentially a policy forthcoming to help guide this, but I guess I still have ongoing concerns around, is this like a first past the post, and how do we ensure that we actually have sufficient safeguards in place that, because we've done this twice now, we don't underestimate the demand on our overall DCC requirements.
I'm going to go to Ms. Boxroot on this. Go ahead.
Thank you for the question and through the chair. Again, it's one of those things we haven't had a chance to really update council. One of the things that have been identified during our capital committee, which again, we haven't been able to launch to council yet, but is forthcoming in our upcoming capital workshop, is the need for a DCC strategy. And Mr. Merrow just spoke to it briefly. We'll unveil it a little bit in terms of all the nuts and bolts we think we can achieve. But what the longer term plan has started to show us is we have gaps in our DCCs. And these are one of the tools that we can utilize to fill those gaps. And there is a broader need, not only for just the front end or agreement policy, but also an overall strategy from zoning and permitting all the way to our prioritization or long-term planning. So we don't have answers for it now, but we've identified that there's an opportunity and a challenge at the same time. And that's something that we'll be working on over the next year with a working group, which is our DCC strategy working group. So we'll talk a bit more about that at the upcoming workshop, and lots to come over the year as well. So hopefully that's helpful.
Can I be perhaps really blunt in my question, just make sure that this isn't a way that developers are using the district to manage or float like their development costs during a really particularly hard time?
I can take a stab at that, and I appreciate the bluntness. It is a tool, but it's a tool that is of consideration for this group, the district in of itself. It's not something we want to use all the time. It does provide a front of the queue sort of mechanism, if that's what you're intending to say. So we absolutely would consider it when necessary, but it's not going to be used often. So it'll be in tandem with our overall strategy. And that's just from a financial planning perspective. There's also the capacity. There's times when the development will be faster than what we can develop, and it might make more sense in utilizing it as a strategy that we prioritize this a certain project in our own teams to do, as opposed to the development. So it's a tool.
Mr. Merrill.
Discretion.
Thank you. Through the mayor, I'll just add to that the internal draft policy, front end agreement policy that we're working on considers the overall impact of a project. And so, as Mr. Jones alluded to earlier in his presentation, just for some context, this project does not solely benefit this parcel. There are larger benefits to the Loggers East area. So that was a consideration in bringing this to council, is that it doesn't just benefit one small area, it does have benefits to the larger community.
Councillor Penningill?
Yeah, thanks. I just sort of trying to wrap my head around all the pieces here. So there's 85,000, which is in theory negotiable. Who, pardon me, that 85,000, was that our estimate? That's the developer's estimate. And if we, so aside from that clarity, is council asked to decide tonight? Yes, that is the number. And then if we sort of approve the recommendation, we've set that number, or is there still refinement on that 85,000 or?
Through the mayor, to your first question, it was the developer's civil engineer that provided the cost estimate of 310,000, and then the 224,000 that's subtracted from that is based on our the DCC's payable. So that's based on our DCC bylaw. So that's where that portion is coming from. My understanding is that the front end agreement is formed part of the bylaw, and so we are going to be asking you to decide on that value today.
Okay, Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks very much. Just want to make sure I understand. At some point, I believe it was Mr. Merrow, I can't recall which of you said, there were sort of three different mechanisms how we achieve these things. One, the district's capital team does it. Second possibility is the developer just does it, and then that's sort of considered their development, their DCC for that project, sort of almost an in-kind contribution, if I want to use that word. I don't know if it's a reasonable use of that word. And the third is this front-ender agreement, where we arrive at a price and we pay them the difference. Do I understand those three different modalities, or did I get something wrong there?
Through the mayor, that is correct. I would say, like, how these things get constructed, there's really only two ways in terms of the construction. It's either the developer's team constructs it or the district's team constructs it. If the developer's team constructs it, then there's we're obligated to repay them in some form, and that minimum form would be 224,000. Anything above that is essentially negotiated. Traditionally, these front-end agreements are often what's in our financial planning and what's in our water master plan, and that's how the cost is determined. And this one's a little unique in that it's a portion of a larger project, so that's why we're relying on that developer's cost estimate for the cap on what the district would be payable for.
Okay, and this is, so the water mains coming into the development, that's one component of the entire water system that the development will be adding to, effectively adding a load onto. There's obviously the wells, the wells at the where we get the water, and then there's all the water mains coming down to it. And so when we have the development, their entire DCC is going towards this one piece, even this one piece minus $85,000. Where does that leave all the other projects? We recover those through DCC funding from other projects?
Thank you for the question, through the mayor. That's correct. And it's not uncommon when a development comes forward that has a need for a DCC project to be built to facilitate the development. Could be a water supply, it could be a gravity sewer main that needs to be upsized, any type of DCC project. That project gets delivered and all of the DCCs payable for that development get attributed to those projects. And as you say, because we have an extensive list of DCC projects within the financial model for the bylaw, they all development contributes to all of those projects.
And just one point of clarification, are water DCCs different from sewer DCCs?
Through the mayor, that's correct. Each category is separate.
Thanks very much. Okay, so this water main will contribute to more than this development. Yeah, and this development will put more drain on our water system than just this water main, right? And we don't really have a very good mechanism to quantify how much of that, how much of either, right? That's not a reasonable question, so I'll withdraw it. Thank you. And so my last question is, what is our wiggle room here in this decision? If we were to request or require the developer, can we move that 85,000 to zero so that the developer's contribution is the construction of the water main in exchange for the $224,000 in DCCs? Is that within our scope?
In theory, that is correct. Keeping in mind that the developer would have to essentially agree to that $0 contribution, and that could pose other challenges with the development in general.
Was that your hand, Councilor Pettingill? Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe a slightly related question. So we're relying on the developer's estimate because this is a portion of a project. Are we able to roughly prorate out? So this is 20% of the total project. If we multiply this number of 300 and whatever it is by 5, does it come out to what's in our DCC, or is there like a sort of a gap between what this would be prorated versus what we have in the DCC bylaw?
That is not something that staff has currently looked at or considered. And I don't think we would want to speculate on that number.
Would it be just sort of generally like reasonable to assume we could say this is 20% of the total thing that's in our DCC bylaw, or is there a reason why that would be difficult for us to do at a high level?
Through the mayor, in theory, you could do a calculation like that. It wouldn't be the most fair representation because, as alluded to earlier, a large portion of the cost is like the mobilization cost and the excavation cost. And so if we're splitting this into several projects, incrementally, each cost goes up a little bit. So if we went and said, for instance, this is 20% of the length of the overall project, it's likely going to represent a larger portion of the cost.
And I just want to caution that we haven't the level of detail that we have for this portion of the project is completely different than the sort of the high level projection of the remainder of the project, including site conditions, riparian along the, all of those things. But I see where you're going, but we don't have comparable level of detail just due to where each piece is in process. Just want to make sure that we're not asking to have unrealistic expectations of level of detail of the remainder of the project.
Yeah, I guess what I'm just sort of even order of magnitude trying to understand, you know, is there alignment between this 300 and whatever number it is and what's our total project cost if you prorate the linear length? And so our DCC bylaw seems like it's right. It could be that this is right and our DCC is way off, or maybe our DCC is in the ballpark and this is way off. I'm trying to wrap my head around, like, are these things lining up? If not, is there, like, where's the gap? Or and maybe there isn't a gap. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I just caution us going too far here because on this piece, because we don't know until we go to market, even with the pieces that are like next actionable pieces in our bylaws. So I don't know that we'll have that available to us, but every action does feed into updates to DCC bylaws, including learnings from something like this. Would be my answer. I don't know if anyone else would like to chime in on this piece. I just don't want to wander too far from our topic today. Do you have any additional questions? Sort of hem that in. I just don't think we're going to get anywhere there. Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to double clarify my first question, which was that by advancing this front end agreement, we are not compromising our ability to pay for our other top priority projects under the wastewater DCCs with existing DCCs. This is not bumping core projects.
I can take a stab at that question. So no, so currently all of our priority projects that are in the financial plan currently are funded, with the exception of the long-term drinking water source, which is out quite a ways. So we're still working towards building enough DCCs. Now the DCC bylaw, and this is water, not wastewater. So the DCC bylaw might have larger amounts of projects, but they haven't hit the prioritization of coming into the financial plan at this point.
Okay, council, I'm looking for, are you moving the the recommendation?
Yeah, I'll move the recommendation as it's presented in our report.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor French seconds. Would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, thanks to staff for answering all the questions. We have not seen a front ender agreement around this table before, so thanks for allowing us to do our due diligence and making sure that we understand the tool that is available to us as well as we can. I do think that this makes good sense for where we're at, both within our water DCC and where this particular project and development is at. To be able to use this tool to advance both a need for this project while maximizing and utilizing the folks that are already there doing this work. I think that is a win in an efficiency. And then it also ensures that we are advancing a project that is not only going to benefit this particular development, but the neighborhood as a whole, increasing the water supply and potential future development through the Loggers East neighborhood. So I think that this makes good sense. I do look forward to the policy on the front ender agreement coming forward. I appreciate we haven't had a chance to see that around this table. But my biggest concern here is kind of that first past the post, or the first one in line is going to get the benefit of this. And we haven't had a more fulsome debate about it, but I hear that staff are working on that, and we'll see that come forward hopefully before any other folks come knocking on the door for another front ender agreement. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor French.
Thanks, Mayor Herford. I reflect back to the days when the details of the front ender agreement for the oceanfront were made public, and this is pretty simple compared to that project. So I was pretty immediately on board with what I saw when I started reading this over the weekend. And this is the type of cooperation with builders that allows existing residents to benefit from new construction. So I see a positive there. And, clearly this is a pipe that needs to be upsized. And as Councillor Stoner said, this just makes sense. And this pipe replacement has the added benefit of taking into account the future development that we know will come into this area.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Go ahead, Councillor Hamilton.
I'm deliberating on this one, and I think it's more on principle than on the practicality here. because I see this as a, if a developer needs something done, then this is an avenue where they can sort of get around and get to the top of the list by saying, we really need to get this done. And when we're contributing not just the DCCs that they would be paying, but we're contributing the extra 85,000, that gives me a bit of pause to reflect on what opportunities is this presenting. I see Councillor French's argument or point that this is how development and community can work together. This is also how community can lose out and have developers come first past the post, because the first one's in, we happen to have some money there, and then 10 developments down, we don't. So I'm conflicted on this. I would really like to see a front-ender policy before we start to consider a front-ender, because I think we do need to treat all of our developments fairly as we move forward. So yeah, I'm going to reserve my decision until I hear any other comments.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'm speaking in support of the motion. I think that throughout the sort of in contemplating this decision and the conversation here with my council colleagues and our staff, highlights the need for policy. So I'm happy to hear that work's underway. I think in the grand scheme of things, yes, if we have many of these, that then we need a policy to manage them. I think that given the dollar value being quite low and the impact to the what we've heard about the prioritization of other projects and this particular maneuver or this particular agreement and subsequent works is not going to derail any projects and prioritization in our DCC, any projects which are community needs, I think makes it supportable for me. If this was a suite of 10 front enders from across the community for large quantities of funds, we'd be having a different discussion, which is what the DCC and the front ender policy work I think will support in future. So I think on balance, this is totally appropriate to move forward, but acknowledge that there's more work to do to ensure that these going forward don't, exclusively serve the community as we do our work here together. So I'll go to Councillor Anderson and Pettingill.
Yeah, just briefly, I recall the front-ender agreement discussions in connection with the oceanfront. It's about 10, 12, maybe a little bit more years ago, and it was controversial. There was heated discussion, including in this room. My take on it at that time was that it was new, a new tool that needed to be explained, and it will again. And I look forward to the discussion that we might have with the capital projects discussion and following the ongoing work of the DCC strategy working group. And I'm sure the development community will also be interested and will benefit from that explication of how we're going to be using this tool. Thank you.
Councillor Pettingill, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I was really debating with myself about which way I was going to go. And I think I'm not going to find my way to supporting this. In terms of front enders in general, I think they actually seem like they could be a very good tool. In this case, I do have some questions about the estimates and feeling the confidence there, although offsetting that is it's not a huge amount. And so, how much am I quibbling over? The other piece, and I apologize to my colleagues who are probably tired of me hearing me about it, but in this whole area, I still do not have a good understanding of the risk from the Fortis pipeline. And originally I was sort of thinking, well, this is just another pipeline that's under the ground. What's the risk? But it is facilitating heavier population there before I have an understanding of that risk. And I was just on the walk back here tonight thinking with some frustration about how so many government decisions are siloed and we don't look at the big picture and so on. And so I think with consistency of some of my other votes and so on, it makes sense at this time for me not to support this for that reason. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands for comment, I'll call the question. All in favor? And opposed? Councillor Pettingill, Councillor Greenlaw opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much. So our next item, 7B1, District of Squamish Official Community Plan, bylaw number 2500-2017, amendment bylaw. And this is dealing with interim housing needs report. Is bylaw number 3139-2025. Maybe let's just take a quick 5 minutes, let everyone stretch their legs and give staff opportunity to get themselves situated. Welcome back, everybody. We're on 7B1, the official community plan amendment bylaw. I'll turn over to staff to introduce themselves and the topic.
Thank you so much, Mayor and Council and members of the community. My name is Sarah McJanet, Manager of Community Planning. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm here with my policy colleague, Matt Gunn, and we are presenting the official community plan amendment bylaw 3139 for second reading tonight. Bylaw 3139 is a legislatively required implementation action to address new provincial requirements under Bill 44 by the end of this year. And this bylaw aligns our OCP with our housing needs identified in the interim housing needs report that was required by the province and brought forward to council at the end of 2024. This OCP amendment task is also Initiative 9 in our Squamish Housing Action Plan. So tonight we are going to review the key amendments briefly and summarize the engagement on the bylaw that was solicited through external referrals and public engagement, and present some of these further revisions to the bylaw that was informed by the engagement. Just trying to advance the slide here. Oh, here we go. As a quick recap and reminder, Bill 44 shifted municipalities towards greater proactive planning. The Local Government Act now requires municipalities to prepare housing needs reports every 5 years. We have a new standardized methodology that we're working with to do these reports from the province, and this is to provide consistent, comparable housing needs assessments across the province. So as shown, we do need to identify the total number of housing units required to meet our community housing needs in the next 5 years, as well as anticipated needs for the next 20 years. And as you know, the interim report that we prepared per the provincial legislation and methodology was completed and published by January 1st of this year. And these OCP amendments are in progress and moving through the approvals. Here's our timeline, just to remind you of the policy drafting and our council touch points and engagement. So scoping work got underway in late 2024 upon completion of the interim report. We initiated bylaw drafting and advanced consultation in the winter of this year. We brought the first reading of the bylaw forward to council on May 6th, and it was given first reading on that date. Then we initiated intergovernmental referrals upon first reading of the bylaw in the summer, and we also initiated some public engagement online and with outreach from mid-July through mid-September. And so this was engagement that was very helpful to help us do some further amendments to the bylaw. And a public hearing will also be required prior to adoption of the bylaw. I just want to add as well, oh, sorry, I'm ahead of myself. So our engagement occurred at the consult level. We did legislative consultation through referral letters to Squamish Nation, the SLRD, School District 48, as well as outreach to Vancouver Coastal Health. And we did receive responses from the Squamish Nation and the SLRD. Those are included in the staff report. We did not receive formal comment back from the school district on the bylaw. We were engaged with them on long-range population projections, and there was high interest there, but the bylaw was prescriptive, so there was no comment there. And we also engaged Vancouver Coastal Health staff at the staff level through outreach, and information was appreciated, but no comments given. No further consultation on the bylaw was recommended past this point on the intergovernmental side beyond first reading. And then for wider community engagement, we published information on our Let's Talk Squamish OCP bylaw housing project page to socialize the housing needs report update. And we offered a short questionnaire of 7 questions, providing opportunity for written comment. We received 4 survey responses and 2 written comments via the Let's Talk Squamish page, and those were included in a short and brief engagement, what we heard report in your attachment. And finally, we also did outreach with Squamish Community Housing Society staff and board with representation on that board with other local nonprofits, including Pearl Space and Squamish Senior Living Society, Squamish Helping Hands, and Squamish Sea to Sky Community Services. And we also recently met with staff at the Hewlko Housing Society to start building those connections and to review housing needs and priorities for the nation, which we've been reviewing through Squamish Nation materials. So we'll just move forward here. We wanted to pause and state that we're very grateful for the level of engagement from Squamish Nation on the bylaw. We've presented a referral log in attachment 2 and to highlight the range of the comments that have been received, not only on the Squamish OCP housing section, but more broadly, other policy in our official community plan. The inputs and feedback provided focus on several areas. Firstly, encouraging us to integrate housing needs of Squamish people in the OCP to reflect the housing needs and Squamish priorities for housing. As you've seen, housing is the top priority for Squamish Nation and Squamish people, as outlined in their Ohomeo 2050 generational plan, with the goal that everyone will be safely and securely housed within a generation. We've also referenced, and as you will see, referenced the Squamish Nation's housing needs assessment, their Build 600 Affordable Homes Action Plan. And we've also heard from them around consideration of housing development potential impacts of areas of importance to Squamish Nation, including rights, interests, and values in planning and development. Also, they've presented climate considerations for mitigation, and this is an area of focus in the nation's climate legacy strategy. And all of these collected inputs and suggestions have informed further edits as detailed in the staff report. We've made edits to the Section 12 housing introduction, as well as a new policy 12.2C, which we'll show you in a moment, as well as other policies. For the comments that were offered by the nation beyond the scope of the Section 12 housing section, we will and have committed to bringing these forward to the next major OCP update process in close consultation with the nation. Just to highlight referral comments from the Squamish Squamish-Lillooet Regional District. They showed support for the bylaw amendments, noting strong alignment with the RGS regional growth strategy, especially policies to prioritize infill housing and direct growth to urban areas, as well as policy focusing on higher density and residential intensification strategies to support housing and mixed use neighborhoods. The SLRD did have a suggestion to add policy to strengthen the coordination and partnership section in terms of the opportunity to coordinate and share information around housing needs assessments within the region. From Squamish Community Housing Society, we've attached the letter and there's comments there for you to consider. Housing Squamish also had a lot of support and suggestions. They noted the strategic plan alignment with policies reflected in the affordable housing section, and also wanted to note greater emphasis and encourage greater emphasis around commitment to building capacity with the nonprofit housing sector, to speak to a diverse range of housing types to address below market rental housing, and supportive and shelter housing options for those experiencing homelessness. As well, we heard additional emphasis needed on the needs of single individuals, renters, and roommate households, in addition to family housing and seniors housing, which has been a big focus in the community plan. So these inputs from the Squamish Community Housing Society have also informed further edits to the Section 12 introduction, as well as a number of policies, as you've seen. I just want to note too that the track changes version of the bylaw is getting a little bit busy looking, but I hope council was able to clearly see kind of the combined edits and track changes that were made at first reading and then the additional edits. So there is a clean copy for you. So, but we really wanted to be transparent to show the edits that were being made. Okay, we're going to keep going, and then Matt's going to share a couple of brief highlights, and then we will get to the recommendation. So in terms of the recap for the key amendments within the bylaw itself, we have done tweaks to that section 12 policy, diverse and affordable housing section. We refreshed the data and the introduction for our housing context. We added the new projected housing needs subsection that Matt will speak to momentarily. And then we also prepared, and new for you this time is the community snapshot graphic. So that was a graphic that we had in the original OCP that was based on 2016 data and earlier. So we took the opportunity to, where we could, add refreshed data, 2021 census data, and other community data where it was available. Okay, and then also the map schedule B1, that is new to this bylaw, and Matt will speak to that momentarily as well. Okay.
All right, thanks. So this is just a snapshot of policy 12.2B, which integrates the 5 and 20-year housing tables that are prescribed by the province in using the provincial HART tool. The HART tool, and therefore the district's 2024 interim housing needs report, projects that 1,586 new housing units are needed between 2021 and 2026. This is 317 units per year over 20 years. From 2021 to 2041, 6,300 units are needed, or 315 units per year. There's just a couple notes I want to make about that. The tool is identifying the housing needs for the Squamish DM, that's district municipality. It doesn't address the CA or the census agglomeration, which is the larger area that includes the DM as well as Squamish Nation communities and reserve lands. So it's just specific to the DM. And also the starting point for these needs projections are 2021. That is the last point we had census data, and that is the starting point that the provincial tool is based off of.
Thanks, Matt. Further to the 5 and 20-year housing needs presented in the policy that Matt just highlighted, we have introduced in this second reading edition a new policy 12.2B. I'm sorry, that is referencing the former policy that Matt just spoke to. We have introduced a standalone policy 12.2C to recognize explicitly recognize the work and integrated planning for short and long-term housing needs of Squamish Nation through their 2024 housing needs assessment and their affordable homes action plan. The policy highlights that a total of 885 units are required over the next 5 years to address overcrowding, welcome Squamish members back to their homelands, keep up with population growth, support those who are unhoused, and elders requiring dedicated support. And within the Squamish Nation housing plan, they also identify that another 340 units are projected as needed for the long term to the year 2048. And approximately 230 units are estimated as needed in the Squamish Valley. As it may not have been clear enough initially, staff are further recommending tonight a friendly text amendment as shown in red on the screen. And this is to clarify that the nation's housing needs are distinct and being assessed by the nation for the immediate short-term 5-year need. So we just wanted to highlight that for you. We will bring it back at the end as an option for council to consider. So that shows that one. Okay, and so there are some additional housing policy edits under the housing collaboration section. So policy edits to 1216A to C in your package. These policy edits were done to strengthen collaboration policies, recognize the formation of the Squamish Community Housing Society, HEM Housing Society, and partnerships with other nonprofit and cooperative community housing providers. We also acknowledge the Squamish Nation goals for safe and equitable and affordable housing, both on reserve and off reserve, to house members within a generation. And also policy edits were made to strengthen intergovernmental information sharing and collaboration, resourcing long-range planning and supports for affordable housing. So another friendly amendment here for you tonight is to policy 1216C, housing collaborations. This is shown on the bottom of your screen. Adding the words, sorry, I'm just gonna adjust something, adding the words regional, so it reads strengthen intergovernmental information sharing and regional collaboration to ensure communities are well cared for and to resource needs assessment coordination, adequate long-range planning, and supports for affordable housing, e.g. public provincial Crown lands available through the Crown grant process, as an example. So that's another small edit for your consideration tonight. And we'll just go to Matt for a couple more.
Yeah, policies 12.2 C, D, and E specify how the OCP addresses the housing needs identified in the 2024 Housing Needs Report and the provincially legislated requirements that are one of the drivers of this amendment. Specifically, they note that the needs are met by the unbuilt zone capacity created through the small-scale multi-unit housing that the district undertook, the zones R1 to R5, that were adopted in June of 2024 to meet the Bill 44 requirements. The new zones permit multiplexes and properties previously restricted to single and 2-unit dwellings. The new zoning, which was mandated by the province, has created significant capacity across the community. Let's hit the next slide there, if you don't mind. The unbuilt capacity is quantified within the policies and mapped in a new OCP Schedule B1, which highlights the R1 to R5 zones. These R zones have created a total zone capacity of 16,289 units, of which 4,971 are currently built as single-family duplex and a few multiplexes in the town. The result is that there's currently an unbuilt capacity of 11,318 units if every one of those properties zoned to the maximum capacity or was built to the maximum capacity that they were zoned for. That's almost double the projected 20-year need identified in the 2024 Interim Housing Needs Report and for the provincial mandated changes. So the SMA, R1 to R5 zoning, therefore satisfies the provincially legislated requirements.
Thank you, Matt. This brings us to the bylaw amendment recommendations tonight. So in the staff report, the main motion is recommending staff reading or second reading of the bylaw and scheduling of the public hearing. Staff also invite council to consider an alternative motion the alternative motion to give second reading with 3 text amendments shown in red on the screen. These further amendments are intended to clarify the policies prior to public hearing. So there's an opportunity to do so. So these are suggestions. The first is revising policy 12.2C as follows, as I showed you earlier, noting that the Squamish Nation needs that are identified in that policy are further to the municipal housing needs presented in the preceding policy. That come from the prescribed provincial calculator. The second revision is to policy 12.2B as follows, and I actually think I have I think that should read C, so I'm just going to get Matt to double check that for me. Can you just go back to that one? So that in red, it's a little bit hard to see, that's to provide a time span for the 5 and the 20-year projected housing needs. So the suggested edits is in red, and it reads, plan for a minimum of 6,300 new homes to accommodate current and anticipated needs over the next 20 years, 2021 to 2041, to address extreme core housing needs, homelessness, suppressed household formation, anticipated growth, rental vacancy rates, and local demand.
is B in here?
12.2B. Okay, thank you. I'll just come back to that. The third is to revise policy 1216C as follows, to add the words regional and needs assessment coordination to that final policy. And then finally, that council directs staff to schedule a public hearing for the OCP bylaw 3139 2025. Ms. Morris has shared those edits with you so that you can see them on your screen. And we're just doing a really brief triple check of that second policy reference number.
Do you mean this one right here? Or
Yeah.
This. Yeah. So this-
I'm going to give space for staff to, let's, maybe we'll go with questions here. And then if we need to take a break to make sure that we have the numbering right, we can do that. Councillor Pettingill, do you want to get started?
Yeah, and just so to be clear, and I understand we're just confirming the numbering, but this alternative motion is the recommended motion. It's everything in the clean copy in our agenda, all those changes, plus these 3 additional is the new recommended that we see up there.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So couple of questions I had then. In section 12.2, there's a few references to the next 20 years. It's unclear to me, if I'm reading this in 3 years or 4 years, what the start date is. Like, is it 2018 when the OCP was first passed? Is it, or how does someone reading the OCP know what the start date is for those 20 years?
To the chair. The housing needs report and the provincially mandated numbers are set from 2021. And so all of our numbers that we're moving forward from there are based off of that last census year.
So do you mean other policies in the OCP broadly? Like, just because we're introducing the clarity or is proposed in this one piece here, item B on that list has a clarification of that 20 years. Do you mean this 20 years or do you mean some other reference in the OCP broadly that we're not touching at this?
I guess my concern, and maybe this is addressing it, but in 12.2, there's a few different references to the next 20 years. And so if I'm a developer or someone in the community reading this 3 years from now, trying to figure out, or 10 years from now, if we're slow at getting an OCP renewal, because sometimes this happens, like, am I past the 20 years? Am I still like, and just wanting to make sure we were clear on what that start date was.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll go to staff for a reply.
Thank you. Through to all of council. One other hopefully helpful point of reference in terms of the timeline is that the table that includes table 12.1 that includes all of those components with the 5 and the 20-year housing needs references the interim housing needs report update in 2024. And so a reader could go back to that housing needs report that lives outside of the OCP and see a much more fulsome summary of the housing needs, and it's time sort of stamped and dated. So I think that we'll be able to track that and somebody could reference it that way.
Okay, as long as we're clear that, yeah, from a sort of legal standpoint, that's sort of solid. Also in 12.2, I saw some references to 4 units, and in the report, it talked about some of the zones, but my recollection was that we had sort of once frequent transit is in place, it'll go up to 6 units. And so it wasn't clear to me if that section is actually consistent with that 6 unit future.
Through the chair. It's a good point. And I think one of the things that we just have to accept, or at least we kind of base this on, is we were taking it as a snapshot of what we have at this point, and we only focused in on the adopted zoning we had from the SMA that's been accepted by council and is now under zoning. The sixplex zoning is it's received third reading based on a future outcome of getting the rapid or the frequent transit network. We don't have it adopted. And so it wasn't contemplated as a contributor to those unit numbers that we represent. We really just took a very narrow focus on what was adopted and used those numbers. In addition to the $6, there are many other things that we could contemplate that we either have development applications that are going to affect what is potential over time, or other non-SMUF properties that have zoning. And we just didn't include any of that. We just focused on that one piece, the R1 to R5 that was adopted at this time.
Thank you. And then last one, and it may be an acceptable answer of like, well, we'll have a future conversation about that, but it came up in the sections we were looking at, and it was the 10% accessible units. And that just, I have a question of what actually do we mean by that? Because I've had some recent conversations with folks saying like, you know, one person's accessibility needs are completely contradictory to another person. So accessible for who? What do we mean? Is there a quick answer, or is that something that we will have to take to another discussion?
Thanks for the question. It's a great question. I want to just highlight that there's two policy areas. There's adaptable units as well as accessible units, and those are distinct. So the policy reference to the 10% references adaptable dwelling units. And so adaptable dwelling units are and they are defined in our zoning bylaw. We define both adaptable and accessible dwelling units. Adaptable means dwelling units that are designed and constructed to facilitate future modifications to provide accessibility that complies with adaptable dwelling unit standards that are specified in the building code. And so the policy that this was actually a policy that was amended last year in 2024. So the policy is that at rezoning, encourage new multi-unit developments with 10 or more dwelling units to secure 10% of those units as adaptable units, as defined in our zoning bylaw that connects with the building code. And just to highlight also, it's an evolving, those adaptable standards are evolving. And I understand that as I think in March 2025, there were new standards that were applied in the BC Building Code. So those are even newer than this amendment was made originally. It's evolving, but the policy intention there is to gain a percentage of the adoptable or units to be adoptable in projects that are 10 units or more. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, go ahead.
And so for clarity then, adaptable, accessible, those are ultimately defined in the building code, and it's not something that we would sort of look to address in a DPA update in the future as part of an OCP update or something. Is that accurate? Or
these policies would be applied with rezonings and applications, and typically we look to try and beat the minimum standards, but acknowledging that these standards are also evolving as well, we will have to go back and revisit these periodically over time, but we will aim to get those adaptable units secured at development through, and then we also have accessible guidelines within our development permit area, universal accessibility guidelines as well.
Okay, thank you. Next, I have Councillor Greenlaw.
Hi, thanks through the chair. I was just wondering, when you're mentioning this goal of 10% of units being adaptable, I'm just wondering if you have any comments on whether or not you think we'll be able to achieve that. My concern is that we're already asking for affordable housing and ACCs and DCCs, and we're consistently and increasingly hearing developers saying that they can't afford those contributions, and they're seeking like exemptions for them or exemptions to parking or, you know, some variance so that they can meet the requirements that we're asking of them. I'm just wondering if you have any kind of estimate of what the cost burden this might be to create adaptable units, what the cost burden might be to the developers.
Through the to all of council, I'm sorry that I won't be able to have that information and be able to speak to the additional specific costs around adaptable units. Adaptable, again, are fit out for future. The ability is to, sorry, I'll step back. For adaptable units, it's to ensure that those units can be designed so they are adaptable in the future. So not all of those measures are necessarily brought in right away. Our development team is engaged with the development community regularly around the fit out and the application of these policies and these building code standards. And so it's an ongoing conversation, but I don't know if I can speak further, and I'll point to Mr. Velanishkis if he'd like to add anything there.
Thank you. Through the mayor. I'm looking at the policy, and it does have some softer language around it. It says encourage the provision of adaptable units. So I think that introduces some flexibility. It's not like most OCP requirements. It's not a rigid requirement. It's always a discussion with developers in terms of whether this is feasible, whether this fits the needs of that development. But I just want to confirm that we do not have the cost associated with that.
Just as a follow-up on this point, the threshold for that is 10 units, and it feels really low. Maybe that's appropriate, but just wonder in the context, we've looked at other things of adjusting when certain policies kick in, and I don't want to, I find assuming in these seats is not safe. So I want to make sure that, that if this was seen as a barrier, a recommendation would come forward to adjust maybe that threshold of whether the percentage of or the size of project that would trigger the not requirement, the strong suggestion, the encouragement to do so. Can you speak to that sort of process, or do you have any comment on this, on the number threshold, that unit threshold?
I do not have a comment on the unit threshold, but you're correct in that it's a process where we create new policies to meet certain need. We apply them, and luckily with an official community plan policy, it is a policy, so there's some flexibility. And then we are constantly adjusting to the market conditions, and sometimes you can go harder on the policy given the market conditions, and sometimes you have to pull back, and then eventually you come back and you update the policy. So it's a bit of a test.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Gillen, did you have an additional question, or are you good for now? Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Stoner next.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, appreciate the clarification that we didn't receive a referral response from SD 48, but they were, I think, it participated in the projection, the model, like the population projection modeling. I feel like I ask this every time when we talk about future housing, and it's a question that I get often around, like, what engagement do we have with SD 48, and are they aware of the population increases that are being projected for? And can we confirm that they feel like they have enough land or are planning adequate school capacity for the population projections that we have in our OCP?
Thank you for the question. I'll just speak to the engagement part, and then I think Matt will probably be able to speak best to the projection work and the second part of your question. On the engagement, we do regularly engage with the school district on an annual, if not more often than one time a year. They are doing a lot of capital planning with our childcare planning, also in their mandate to support childcare on school grounds. We've been doing a lot more engagement in the last 5 to 8 years. They were really interested in the population projection work that we have been doing. So we fully open book shared all of the work that Ramlo has done with us on those long range population projections, so that that is the local knowledge that they seek always in their work as well. So that's been really positive. I'll let Matt speak to the second part.
Sure, through the chair. Yeah, and the most recent time we discussed this with the school district, they confirmed the same message that we've heard multiple times over past years, where they are not land poor. They have more space than they think they will need. In fact, they do talk to the possibility that they may even sell some parcels that are in areas where they don't think they would get used for the construction of schools. And they have significant opportunity for intensification of existing parcels of land. Should they need additional capacity for students, they could build more capacity adjacent to or on the existing land. And the other piece that's really key to note, which is consistent among their own projections, which they run, and our projections that were produced by the consultant we hired, our projections don't show big increases in the student population over the coming 20 years. They show somewhat consistent flat youth populations, despite the increasing population of the community as a whole. Those projections, if you take a look, there's a couple of graphs you can look, we're getting old. And the big bump is from like 30, 40, 50, 60. That's where the bump happens. It's not the kids.
Thank you for that. It's a bit stark, but Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. I found the referral or the log of referral responses exceptionally interesting, and not least the Squamish Nation Connect items. And I'm going to refer to, now that's exceptionally interesting for us because we're going to be looking to implement our memorandum of understanding. There's a lot of themes there that are of interest. Under item number 14, I'll just quote a passage here. A future major update to policy and procedure will integrate risk management measures informed by a district-wide archaeological overview assessment underway currently. The district has set objective to define an archaeological development approval information area. I guess I have a couple of questions here. That work that is underway, of course, it's important, has important implications and obvious implications for land development and residential land development, not least. But will this, when that work is complete, come before council in the way of a report, the archaeological overview assessment? My first question.
Thank you to all of council. Absolutely. That work on the district-wide archaeological overview assessment will come back to council for review, and there will also be broader community engagement and information sharing around that. We will be, that project did get an extension. I think I mentioned at a previous council meeting, it's a grant-funded piece of work. We got an extension into 2026, and we are looking forward to information from the archaeological team. The AOA information will help us strengthen our regulations and our policy. You mentioned the development approval information area. That's something that we've identified early as an opportunity to identify the parameters and the situations where archaeological information would be required by the municipality. And further to that, the province of BC, the Heritage Conservation Act is going through a major transformation process right now. And so there's been some engagement with local governments around the province on that as well. And that will also be informing our work going forward. So we look forward to updating council at a future time.
Thank you, Ms. McJanet. I guess a follow-up question is the intent to define a development approval area for archaeology, if you like. Would that be undertaken prior to initiating an OCP review, the one that we are scheduling for 2028, or would we wait until that review would be underway before we undertake that work?
Thank you for the question to all of council. I don't think we have a firm answer around the timing of that. It could very well be a standalone amendment, but I think we would probably build it into that next OCP major update.
Of course, very topical province-wide and important for all of us here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other questions, council? We do have a recommendation before us, and this and the alternative motion, which is the recommended motion, is on the screen. Are you moving that? Councillor Pettingill moves. Seconder. Councillor Stoner seconds. We have to speak to it. Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, thanks for all the work on this. I think for me, and I assume most of us or all of us in this room, the OCP is such a critical foundational document that I rely on a lot, and very happy with the work that's been done, the analysis, and I think it helps keep us in a consistent and good direction. I would just sort of want to say, given some of the conversation, and maybe we need to think of, have a bit further conversation in terms of accessibility, but as we are getting older as a community, I think accessibility is becoming a lot more important across the board. And with our focus for a while on being such a outdoor adventure active community, I feel like maybe we didn't spend enough focus on accessibility for a while. And so maybe there's some catch up to do. So really not an area where I would like to see us find ways to, find exemptions or loopholes. For me, I wonder, could we push further than 10%? And I think there's a bit of a question of like, what is accessibility, accessible for whom, and what exactly are we trying to achieve there? And it's a whole deep, I think, conversation or group of conversations there, but glad to see that at least that 10% piece there. And hopefully we can really push that forward amongst everything else that's in here. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, I will be supporting the motion on the floor, and thanks for the alternative motion with the slight language changes in some of those policies. I think that better reflects the intent of what we were going to put in there. I think that this is important work, although it is legislated for us to be doing. It's always odd to be doing a bit of a minor update to a document as big as the OCP that usually we do very lengthy multi-year extensive engagement on. We know we're going to be going into that process anyways, and here we are doing a lot of work to respond to the province's requirements of us to do so. I think that this does that in a really good way. It incorporates the interim housing needs report. Although that has its challenges, I do think it's important to include those numbers in here. And I do think we've gone above and beyond of what is just legislatively required in order to provide a little bit more fulsome context and really responding to the housing providers' needs in our community, Squamish Nation and Hewlko housing, and incorporating some of the data that they have and reflecting that here in a really good way. And so I just want to thank staff for doing kind of going above and beyond in that space. And not only is this checking a mark, but I think it sets us up well for the next round of major updates for the OCP in a few years to come. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. I'd like to make a couple of observations. Again, referring to the Squamish Nation Connect, part of the referral log, item number 13 refers to the highest sustainability standards. This is what the Squamish Nation would like to see. And I find that we might go back to the second to last OCP document, which referred to the local value chain in producing houses with wood. If we look to other jurisdictions which also have higher or high ambition levels in green building, they're emphasizing using local resources, local value chains, Squamish Nation timber, Squamish Nation resources, and building the local value chain in building with wood, and also heating with wood. This is connecting the dots between economic development and building our housing infrastructure. Another observation I'd like to make concerns an observation made that I'll just cite here, future collaboration in the same part of the log. We encourage accelerating these actions to reflect reconciliation principles and immediate community needs, not waiting for the 2028 OCP. Let's get started now, is what the Squamish Nation has to say. I agree. In fact, our current OCP is referred to here. It's under number 23. It's again, the wood value chain. We've got a whole policy on it under 23(2)B. And so we don't have to wait for the new OCP. It's here now. And in fact, in 2019, a Squamish Nation business arm wrote a letter to council asking for attention to 23-2B. We never actually got back to them. And since then, we've had 2 approaches from Squamish Nation companies in the wood and forest products business asking for attention to this section of our OCP. So I agree with the Squamish Nation. Let's get on with what we have already in our policy and the objectives that we've set. I think I'll leave it at that. It's a very broad-based report. We've gone above and beyond, and congratulations to staff on this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor French.
Thanks, Mayor Herford. My colleagues have articulated my thoughts well, so I'll be brief. This clearly has been through vigorous review, and I appreciate that and acknowledge the amount of work that went into it. And I believe at this point that it is ready for public hearing so that we can get broader community feedback. So I support second reading.
Thank you. Any other comments? Speaking in support of the motion, you know, as has been discussed in the conversation and comments on this vote, this is something that was largely legislated to and quite prescriptive. But I appreciate the care and attention to and how this was done in a way that I think really strengthens the document and updates appropriate areas and will really help the community understand what we're trying to convey and where we are today. So really useful that way. I do think that, you know, as others have said as well, doing things when we're legislated to do them is, you know, out of our normal flow is challenging. And it is ironic that in other areas of housing work, our ability to hold a public hearing has been removed. And then to implement this legislatively required piece, the next step is a public hearing on a matter we have very little input into. So which is more just frustration at the provincial process that has led us to here. And there's many examples of the ways it's challenging. However, I'm happy with the work that's been done here, and I think the integration and the sort of the feedback provided by the Squamish Nation and doing our utmost to integrate that feedback into the document I see, and as others have stated, though, those feedback points were quite enlightening and useful in this work and work ongoing. So thank you so much for the work, and I'm looking forward to the next step in the process, which will be a public hearing, which from my understanding will be happening soon, as we need to adopt this by the end of the year. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Sorry, Councillor Green, I just want to make sure there wasn't a delay. That was not opposition? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. Okay, so moving through our agenda now, we are on to adoptions. Now, we don't normally have, it's our practice that we don't have presentations during adoptions, but on this next item, which is the District of Squamish Business Improvement Association bylaw number 3182, we do have some comments from Ms. Morris.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Sarah Morris, and I am the Manager of Legislative Services here at the District of Squamish. My pronouns are she, her, so please feel free to address me in that manner. Today I'm here to present the District of Squamish Downtown Business Improvement bylaw number 3182 for consideration of adoption. And the reason why we have a presentation for this bylaw adoption is because there's a legislative requirement for approval of the property owners within the local area service to provide consent for this bylaw. So the objective today is to present the results of the petition against process that was required before adoption of the bylaw, and then to also request adoption of the bylaw. Just as a bit of a background, Council supported the local service area upon Council initiative on July 29th, and also provided first, second, and third reading to the bylaw, which allowed us to proceed with the petition against process. A timeline summary of events that occurred after that. So we mailed out notice to property owners in accordance with Section 94 of the Community Charter. And then we also provided notice twice. Oh, sorry. We provided notice in accordance to Section 213 of the Community Charter to the property owners. And then according with Section 94, we provided 2 notices in the newspaper. And then on the second notice date, 30 days, it opened the 30-day window for the petition against process to, for opportunity for the petition against process to be registered with the district. And so the closing date for the petitions was October 20th, and I'll provide a summary of the results of the petition against process. In accordance with the community charter, in order to have the bylaw not be adopted by council, 50% of property owners representing 50% of the total land and improvements value must register a petition against the bylaw. And as you can see, we're well under that threshold with only 4.15% of property owners registering petitions against this bylaw, and only 2.06% of value being represented on those petitions. So with that, staff would like to recommend that the District of Squamish Business Improvement Association bylaw number 3182 be adopted.
Thank you. Any questions about what we've heard, or if not, I'd look for a motion to adopt.
Yeah, I'll move the staff recommendation, which is the adoption.
Seconded by Councillor Stoner. Would you like to speak to it in any way?
I think this makes lots of sense. The downtown BIA is an important member, an important community member, very valuable in our downtown community, keeping lots of the businesses thrive, helping the businesses thrive there. So yeah, thanks very much for the work on this, very detailed work on getting all the dates right and all the letters out, I'm sure. And thanks to the downtown BIA for their work.
Thank you. Other comments? Go ahead, Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, just briefly, thanks for walking us through the legislative process of getting here. And I see Ms. Neal is here with us from the Downtown BIA, who I think was doing a lot of the outreach to businesses within the catchment area in order to gain support. And obviously you did an excellent job. And I hope that this allows you a little bit more flexibility to do the great work that you do for not just the downtown businesses, but for our community as a whole. Thanks.
Councillor French.
Thanks, Mayor Herford. In speaking in support, I too will thank the Executive Director of the Business Improvement Area to join us tonight. A bit of a lonely back section there. I see the BIA playing a really important role downtown and growing into the future of our downtown, a future which I envision a boundary change to include new businesses that are currently located outside of the BIA boundary. That's not for today, but just projecting a little optimism into the future as the BIA grows with the town.
Thank you. Any other comments? Speaking in support of the motion, I think this process, the counterpetition process, is an interesting one. We use it. It's similar things are used in various steps that we've dealt with in this room, and I think the success of this is really speaks volumes to the work that the downtown BIA is doing, and just how impactful it is for not only the downtown businesses but the community as a whole. So you're not going to a perfect score, I don't know, is a realistic expectation in a matter such as this, but I'm happy to support, and what I see here is something that does have strong community support. So happy to support and move this forward. So congratulations very much, and I will call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. So next adoption, we do not have a presentation on. This is the District of Squamish Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Bylaw, number 2257, 2015, Amendment Bylaw, number 3114, 2024. So someone would like to move that? Councillor French moves adoption. I'll second that. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have an appointment of a Community Bylaw Services Officer. And we don't have anyone speaking to this, so moved by Councillor Stoner, second by Councillor French. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. So we have correspondence action requested. This was a request from the Executive Director of Youth Climate Corps BC, and Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, I'd like to move that the mayor write a letter of support on behalf of council for the Youth Climate Corps as requested in this correspondence.
I will second that. Would you like to speak to it?
I will just continue to say that I don't think we often get enough opportunity to talk about how fantastic Youth Climate Corps has been, and we're one of the few communities in the province who's been able to really benefit from this program. And so I think it's important to continue to show up and speak to the importance that it has provided for us, so that it can hopefully continue to gain funding from the province and it can be expanded across the province.
Thank you. Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, and just as I've interacted with some youth in our community, despite some of the rhetoric you hear, I think a number of youth are really concerned about climate change and what's happening. And I think many of them quite rightly feel that we're not doing enough. And so here's an opportunity where we can help empower them to do more and to push us to do more as well. And so I think this has been a very, actually the Climate Corps has been very active in many ways in our community and very productive and helpful. And so really excited to see them continue.
Thank you. Other comments? Councillor French.
Thanks, Mayor Herford. We've definitely seen how effective the Youth Climate Corps can be through the work that the group has done in Squamish. The organization has a proven track record, and writing the letter that's proposed is something that we can do to acknowledge the results that the group produced here. This I definitely see helping to ensure that the group can continue to offer the services that it provides.
Thank you. Any other comments? Happy to provide the letter of support. I wanted to just for council, we do have a policy. I have the ability to reply and provide these letters without it coming to council. Councillor Stoner flagged this one to come on to the agenda to give us this opportunity to really celebrate it as well. I not to put intent to your ask, Councillor Stoner, but so if just using this as an example, if that's something that anyone sees and asks come in that would like to have it come to council for discussion, then please raise that with me. But I'm happy to provide this letter of support. This particular initiative has been very impactful in the community, and I think that anything that we can do to leverage that impact more broadly outside of the community, leading by example here, is a worthwhile endeavor. So I'm happy to support that, and we'll get something drafted and off to them in a timely fashion. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we're going into items referred from the consent agenda. So we go with correspondence. We'll try to go in the order that they appeared originally. So first we have the BC Housing Communications and Engagement Summary, which Councillor Stoner pulled. Let's discuss that B1 and C1 maybe back to back, if that's okay. So Councillor Stoner, do you want to get us started on that?
I would provide the following motion, and if it's seconded, I'll speak to it, that this be referred to a future committee of the whole discussion for council.
Okay. Second by Councillor Pettingill. Go ahead.
I realize that maybe was not the clearest of motions, but I'll explain it. I think that there is important work that is ongoing. So these are in reference to the affordable and supportive housing projects that are proposed at 39900 Government Road. The response from BC Housing, I think, is useful and provides a little bit of context for the many questions that our community still has about these projects. And our staff did an excellent job in one of the responses as provided. There's a bit of like a chicken and an egg here. We're still waiting on a response from BC Housing on whether there's actually funding approval for these projects. And so I don't want to jump to doing a whole bunch of work before we know that these projects are actually happening. And I also think it's important for us as a council to have a conversation about what our role is or is not as these projects advance, given that we are providing lease to the land, that there potentially is opportunity in negotiating the lease with BC Housing on requiring things like good neighbor agreements for the potential future operators of those projects. And so there's just elements that I think are worth us diving into as a council on what our roles and responsibility is as projects like this move forward in our community. And so that's why I'd like to refer it to a committee of the whole discussion.
Just as a point of clarity, I recognize that your motion doesn't have a date stamp, and your comments around like approvals and so on seem to can we infer that this coming back after a positive investment decision by BC Housing would be appropriate from your perspective?
Yeah, that works for me. That was kind of my intent. I didn't include it in the motion because I feel like there's a few moving pieces and I didn't want to dictate. There's two projects on the site. One does have funding, I believe one does not have funding. And so there's just a few moving pieces. So I was going to leave it to staff to figure out the best time to bring that forward. But I do think it's well worth a discussion amongst our group.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to the seconder comments.
Yeah, happy to support that. I think it makes sense. And from my reading, actually, BC Housing did answer a number of the questions that I heard from the community. But I think as we've learned, it takes a while for information to get out and to permeate and so on. And so I think an additional benefit of a council discussion is some extra opportunity for the community to hear and understand where council is and what the project actually is proposing, and it's a good chance maybe for BC Housing to reiterate some of what's in their letter. So I think the more we can share, there's been a real appetite for more information from the community, and so I think an opportunity to provide that is a good thing.
Yep, thank you. Any other comments on this? Speaking in support of the motion, I think as others have stated, there's a strong desire for more information, and whether the information that is being sought is contained in this report or there's still gaps, I think is important to understand, and as well as all involved parties' roles and clarity on what to expect going forward here. So happy to support and facilitate that conversation happening. So look forward to that when the time comes. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Not knowing the nature of why B1 was pulled, I pulled C1 in reply, but really move receipt is I'll move now, and just this was staff's response and referred to some correspondence we received, and was the same topic. So I just wanted to make sure we had the ability to discuss it as a whole if we needed. But I'm happy to move receipt. With that, I'll call question. All in favor? Motion carries. So next we had the UBCM provincial responses. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. We have received a response from the Ministry of Housing and Municipal Affairs to our District of Squamish resolution we submitted to UBCM on registration of notice of latecomer charges on property title. This response is quite detailed and helpful, and between the lines, I believe it's a positive response. I worked on this resolution with a staff member here who is now heading up another division within our municipality, and I wish to make sure that the engineering department is aware of this updated provincial response. So I will move that the provincial response to UBCM Resolution 2024 EB 70 be referred to staff for information.
Thank you. I'll second that. Thank you. Any other comments on this? Okay. This is an example of things moving at a glacial pace. Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, I found the responses unsatisfactory. I think we usually do. I've tried my hardest to squint and to read that they're actually doing some things, and I can almost get there. But what I'm sort of taking away is just the importance of continuing to push and advocate.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm just going to check with staff. We've got a motion here that deals with the one resolution. We need to move receipt of the rest of the document, given that the direction is just on the one piece of it. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Sarah Morris, Manager of Legislative Services. If the motion on the floor is that the piece of correspondence be referred to staff for information. So if you want to amend that to also receive
the motion was a specific was to a specific number of it. So I think we could go I think we should go more broadly, so the whole document gets referred to staff for information. So I'll amend that it's the entirety of this be referred to staff. And you want to second that, Councillor Anderson? Does that? Yeah, you're seconding that. Okay. So speaking broadly to the whole document, I think as Councillor, I'm in a similar boat with Councillor Pettingill on this one. It's hard to get excited about the content here, although we did get responses, and it shows where we need to continue to advocate, or it feels in some cases build understanding of what the issue is, as some of these responses are a little disheartening. But we'll keep. I think it pays to be relentlessly optimistic and continued effort over time. Hopefully we'll get some movement on some of these matters. And I was happy to hear one of my colleagues was excited about the response to one of these pieces. So we'll count that as a minor victory and continue the work ahead. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, all right. We had no business arising from the minutes. No notice of motion. Oh, I had to vote on the main. Sorry, we were voting on the amendment there. So you guys all voted on the amendment unanimously. So now we will vote on the main motion as amended. And I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for that. Sorry if there's any confusion there. So no notice of motion, open question period. If anyone in the audience has any questions of clarity. Seeing none, council or staff announcements. Councillor Anderson.
A couple of weeks ago, longtime resident Norm Barr passed away. All of us have met Mr. Barr when he spoke to a public hearing we held at Brennan Park about a year and a half ago. Norm Barr served 3 terms on our district council, in addition to numerous community organization involvements over the years, notably the Flying Club, where they were involved in actually building the airport. He was elected on December 11, 1965, and Mayor Brennan appointed him to 5 different committees, including waterworks and street lighting. And in February of 1966, he donated his equipment for land clearing of what is now Brennan Park. And on February 22nd, he was already ready with a progress report on a Brackendale waterworks, water main and installations for 5 different neighborhoods of Brackendale, including Wewicombe Reserve. On March 15th, he presented recommendations for changes to the water bylaw and for a new Squamish water supply system and hookup fees. He was a man of action. March 29, he presented a district-wide plan for 54 new streetlights. 40 of them were in areas where had no lighting at all. And on May 3rd, 1966, he presented on proposed propane handling standards, a new permitting system, inspection services, and a fee schedule for inspections. May 10, the Highlands fire siren was installed through Mr. Barr. And on June 7, by June, the Brackendale Waterworks was already in operation. And on June 7, he convinced council to obtain the services of a community planner, the first planner we had for the District of Squamish. And on October 28th, to round out 10 months of his first term, he designed the street lighting plan for Valleycliff. So in 1978, when he came back in 1978, he and Chamber of Commerce President Dave Stewart went to Victoria with a plan for an industrial park, our today's business park. They had already figured out the buffer zones, the servicing plan, and they had already got an agreement from the Department of Highways about access to the business park from the highway. The ministry was so impressed that they gave the district the land of the today's business park for 20% of what they were originally going to ask for, $1,000 an acre. They were so impressed with the job that Mr. Barr and Mr. Stewart had done. A few years ago, former Councillor Doug Race and I met Norm Barr at the White Spot, and he was at a meeting of the Romeo Club, the really old men eating out club. And so we got the idea to ask him, because we had just been discussing the airport strategy here in council, Norm, can we hire you as an airport strategy consultant? After a pause, he said, you couldn't afford me. So we acknowledge here a remarkable person and a contributor to the building of the community of Squamish, such as we will rarely see again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. That's amazing. I've got Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, this is sort of a half show and tell what I did last week and half soapbox. I was not in attendance in person last week. I joined remotely. I was with the Lower Mainland Local Government Association. We took a trip to Victoria, and as much as I was just complaining about provincial responses to advocacy, I think it is still important to push the Lower Mainland Local Government Association. Collectively, we represent municipalities who have 70% of BC's population. Mayor Herford sits on that board with me. And we were able to meet with a few ministers and talk to them about some key things that is of concern to our rather large membership. I would say that lots of last minute changes. Things are pretty busy in Victoria, but the discussions with ministers were very collaborative. One meeting fell through, but they rushed and they were able to get us meetings with other ministers we weren't expecting to. And so it did actually feel like a really collaborative and productive, although we didn't get big signed checks or anything. It felt worthwhile. Just to touch on a few things that we did speak to the minister about. using the provincial lobbyist registration or having a similar lobbyist registration for municipal governments, something we talked to them about. An ethics commissioner. We've been quite lucky in Squamish and done a lot of work with our code of conduct to keep it that way. Other places haven't been so lucky. And so making sure that municipalities have an affordable path through some of the things that prevent good people from running, quite frankly. And so hopefully that'll be helpful. We talked about enhancing housing stability through more provincial investment in support of programs, which I think will resonate here. And a resolution that actually came from Squamish is easier access to public land for housing. Some discussion about with all these provincial housing targets, how we're all struggling to keep up with the social and community infrastructure demands. And so what can the province do to better support us there? And then one last I'll mention, there's a few others, but equitable distribution of emergency shelter beds. I guess some communities are finding they are taking an undue burden in terms of providing shelter to people, and some feeling that not everyone's doing their part. So there's some discussion about how we would deal with that. So that's sort of the show and tell piece. The soapbox piece is we got invited to question period on Thursday, where you got to see the opposition ask some questions and put forward some motions. I found it really discouraging. There were a couple of motions to repeal the DRIPA. So it's I can't remember what that acronym. Oh, Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act, which is BC's implementation of UNDRIP. And this really stemmed out of the recent Cowichan trial decision and a lot of misinformation about that. I did feel actually quite proud to be from Squamish because in the context of our MOU and the work we're doing and the sort of good discussion, well-informed discussion, it's it's a whole different world. I was reminded that Councillor Stoner, as first VP of UBCM, who represents 100% of BC's residents, arguably, led a fascinating and in-depth discussion with some lawyers about what the Cowichan trial decision actually means. And that was a much better source of information than what I saw in question period. The one piece I want to tease out is there was a lot of, I would say, misinformed concern about what this decision would mean in terms of people's ability to get insurance and thus renew their mortgages. And I think from everything I've seen so far, that is not an immediate concern or issue here. It's actually climate change that is a much bigger threat to your ability to get insurance and therefore a mortgage. So if we're actually concerned about these sorts of things, maybe that's where our discussion should be going. And so, yeah, it was a bit, I wasn't super inspired by what I saw from our provincial representatives. Actually, our MLA was quite good, but more broadly, not great, but did feel proud to be part of from Squamish. So for what it's worth, that was my week last week.
Thank you for the update, and thank you for doing the work. Go ahead, Councillor French.
Thank you, Mayor Herford, and thank you, Councillor Anderson. I hadn't heard the news about Norm Barr. He will be missed. His Highlands fire signal will not be missed. I was awakened many times by that thing in my growing up years, a block and a half away from it. My neighbors were pretty happy when the fire department stopped using those sirens, which actually were spread all around town, in favor of some cool new technology of the day, namely pagers. While the neighborhood was quieter, my house was not, because my bedroom was right next to my parents. So when the midnight pager went off, I was still being awakened by fire calls. But Norm Barr, definitely one of our pioneers to be acknowledged and celebrated. I wanted to share that on Saturday, the BMX track, there was an afternoon gathering of riders to celebrate the success of a long list of Squamish cyclists. I didn't actually make it, but Mayor Herford did. So I'm hoping that you'll provide a little bit more than what I'm about to share. Of particular note, Ellie Hoskin was there along with Jackson Goldstone. The biking community knows these two names extremely well. Young Squamish residents who are just lighting the bike world on fire. Ellie, the Women's World Cup Enduro champion, and Jackson is the Men's World Cup Downhill champ. Squamish Chief Reporter Ina Pace covered the event, and I think she created a great short video that you can check out on the Chief's website for anybody that's interested. And I'm sure that on Thursday, when the paper comes out, there'll be some pictures and a full report. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, I have some things to say on that when I get to mine. Other updates? Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. Through the chair, just one that I think of relevance. We had a Squamish Regional District meeting a few weeks ago. I don't think we've had a regular meeting since, so I'll bring back around. That one of the topics that the board passed was the SLRD Indigenous Relations Truth and Reconciliation in Practice Guide that has been a really substantive piece of work at the Regional District Board for about a year now that was fully endorsed by the board. This does, the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District is on the unceded territory of the Lillooet Nation, the Squamish Nation, and then 10 communities that comprise the Satliam Nations in the northern part of the SLRD. And the guide really outlines vision, values, principles, roles, and responsibilities of how the regional district, our staff, our board, intend to show up in the practice of reconciliation, and has kind of 4 overarching commitments to it, and how we're going to do that work in a good way. And so it's what I think is a fairly comprehensive guide, one that I was very proud to endorse as one of the board members around the table. And I do think dovetails quite well with the work that we've been doing here in Squamish. And I know that there continues to be ongoing collaboration with the regional district and the member municipalities in order to align that work as well with nations in building relationship. And so just wanted to flag that for this council as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other updates? Oh, Councillor Greenlaw, go ahead. Sorry if I missed your hand earlier.
Oh, no, that's okay. I just put it up. Mine's just a quick little one. I had the pleasure of going to the Portals exhibit a couple weeks ago at the Spirit School, and it was a really beautiful exhibit, and it was just really nice to see that level of art in Squamish, and the women who put it together did a fantastic job. And I just wanted to say thanks for that. And I hope other people got to go enjoy it as well. I liked it so much that I went back the next night again. But hopefully it tours again and other people get to enjoy it. Thanks.
Thank you. So just a few updates from my end. I wanted to recognize that we've just come through a period of disruption to our work here through job action associated with the with negotiations with our QP members. So I'm really happy to be back and to welcome our valued staff back to work, as well as the community back to the services and shortly the facilities that they've grown accustomed to. So we have the pool reopening is scheduled for November 7th. So that's coming very quickly here, and not long behind it will be the ice, which is scheduled to open on the 15th of November. So really excited to have our staff back at work, and everyone's working hard to be ready for the full return of the community to Brennan Park. So thank you to the community for the patience, for allowing all parties involved to work through that. What was a challenging process. So happy to report that we are back and will be fully functioning shortly. So I just have a couple updates. I was looking at sorry, I'm trying to get the date right here. I think it was on the 29th. I had my annual visit from the folks at the Legion to present the ceremonial first poppy at the epitaph here. So to sort of signal the start of the Remembrance Day events, and so I wanted to recognize that that gesture, which I find it to be actually quite profound, and also will be at the service on the 11th as well, representing the district and council. So yeah, that was as I could go on about the state of the world, but I think it's just such an important time to remember where we've been and make sure that we don't end up there again. And on a brighter note, on Thursday the 30th, I attended a Squamish or a blessing ceremony at the Adventure Center around the new installation that's there. And if folks at this table haven't been yet or are tuning in, haven't been, go check it out. It's quite interesting. I'm trying to get the pronunciation down of a bunch. There's one piece I particularly like, shows the English name of the animals, and then you can turn to the other side and you can see the nation name of the animals. And I think naming animals is perhaps my next step in learning Squamish Nation language. But it was great to be there with the Squamish Nation elders, and to it's always an honor to spend time with the Nation elders, but to hear them speak about what the installation and the process leading to it means to them was really impactful. So I'd like to thank everyone involved in that project broadly, and then in the blessing ceremony as well. It was quite. It was a lovely way to spend an afternoon. And then on Sunday was the Raised by the Trail event at the BMX track, put on by the Squamish BMX Club, as well as Tourism Squamish had involvement. And the idea was to celebrate the riders from Squamish that have been competing on the international stage. Earlier, as Councillor French mentioned a few names, those are world champions. And there are countries that initiate cycling programs and cycling centers and don't come anywhere near matching the results of Squamish on the international stage. So it was great to be there with the community, and of course the championship, or the champion riders that we have, I think are really, the name of the event was Raised by the Trail. So I think really are a product of the environment, and that is has been created over the years by visionary community organizers like Cliff Miller, the founding member of SORCA. Councillor French and I had the pleasure of working with Cliff for many, many years on various initiatives, and of course all the volunteers over the years building trails. And then when it comes to the athletes themselves, it takes dedication by the athletes, but it takes the dedication of their family and their family support network to get to make those sacrifices to get these folks out to where they need to be to compete, and of course to get them equipped is no small feat either. So it was really it's the first time I remember having an event like this that really singled out the level of success that we're having there on the international stage. So thank you to all the organizers, and I can say that those all those riders are not just inspiration to all the young kids that were around there, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of adults that wish they could ride to the level of an Ellie Hoskins or Jackson Goldstone. I also wanted, it also to me highlighted the complexities of life and the high points and the low points. And it's not a secret that Jackson Goldstone is our current downhill mountain bike world championship. He won the overall World Cup. And then days later lost everything in a devastating house fire here in Squamish. So my heart goes out to the Goldstone family. And there was lots of obviously emotion around that. There was a lot of loss. There were no life loss, no pets lost. So they were counting it as a victory of sorts, but a huge loss for them. And I can't imagine the emotional roller coaster ride that would mean for a family. So yeah, but they're in good spirits and yeah, working to resolve that. But wow. So also just thank you to Councillor Anderson for that background around Mr. Barr. I was really saddened to hear of his passing. He's truly a very important figure in the community, and as you highlighted in this work, but also in the private sector work that he did as well. So yeah, thank you for highlighting that, and my condolences to the family. With that, I'm looking for yes, Councillor Stoner.
I'd like to propose a motion to terminate.
I will accept that motion if it's seconded. Seconded by Councillor Hamilton. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you for joining, Councillor Greenlock. Thank you, everybody.